Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you, Dr. Hayes, for giving me the opportunity to present today. I hope it's a useful session. If this is just really an overview of on an awareness level with some of the considerations about making VR environments more accessible to users of a wide range of disabilities, what things you can do, and what are some tools out there that can make the experience more accessible, even if the VR experience itself is not. So excited to get started. My name is Tania Heap. I'm the Director of Learning Research and Accessibility in our Teaching and Learning Center here at UNT, DSI Clear, and also I manage a research team in an UNT NetDragon Digital Research Center, and Dr. Hayes is one of our faculty fellows who does research with us. So I wanted to start first to define briefly what we mean by people with disabilities interacting with a range of technologies. So we're grouping them under, most people work in the accessibility field will group disabilities according to 4 broad groups: hearing disabilities, so people are deaf or hearing impaired; visual disabilities, so people are blind, low vision, but also colorblind; people have temporary vision loss, temporary peripheral vision loss; people with mobility disability. So of course, people may be using a wheelchair, people have limited fine motor control, people have cannot use some limbs, and also cognitive disabilities, which also can include in this group also people with learning disabilities. So by this, we also group people who may have been born with a disability or maybe acquired a disability as a result of traumatic brain injury, for example. People have maybe ADHD, people have dyslexia. So it's a really wide, broad spectrum of users. Here is a couple of examples of technologies that people with disabilities use, depending on the disability they use to interact with the computer. So one is the Refreshable Braille display. So it will translate to them the content on a computer screen, particularly text-based. If that's text-based, that's presented as text, it will be translated as Braille. People with extremely low vision can use script magnifiers. There are some paid software like Zoom Text, as in this example, but also, for example, Windows has a native inbuilt script magnifier that you can enable by pressing the Windows button and the plus symbol. And also screen reader software is a software that reads text out loud to blind people, and there are paid versions, free versions that are already native to Windows operating system or Mac operating systems. For people who have mobility, severe mobility impairments, there are still tools that can use to interact with the computer. This is an example of a headband. So I don't know if you can see it, and it's not a very high-res photo, unfortunately. I was looking for something that was not copyrighted, but this person is interacting using a kind of a stick that comes out of the headband to press buttons on a touchpad. And some other people use a mouth stick, so they interact using their mouth. Other people use a sip and puff switch. And so it's good to have any kind of technology that can be accessible, ideally both by a mouse and by a keyboard. Some people only use a mouse. A lot of us probably are very mouse driven. Some people only use keyboard, and some people cannot use a keyboard. So they can only use a mouse because they don't have a choice. So some things to keep in mind. Some of the current barriers in some of the immersive environments that we've seen that uses VR or AR technology are in general very heavy reliance on visual spatial effects, which of course can be a barrier for people who can't see, or have, they don't have a good sense of space. Fine motion controls, with some games, I'm a gamer myself, I play on the PS4, and with some activities, you really have to be precise in the way you push the buttons or multiple buttons at the right time. So it can be very challenging if you have maybe, maybe you have some, maybe your hands are shaking, or you just more, in more extreme cases, some people cannot use a limb or have a missing limb. Some other gamified or immersive based experiences require the person to position themselves in a certain, precise in a certain point to be able to interact with activity. Of course, a lot of these activities include animations, blinking and flashing elements. Some of them require specific tech and hardware requirements. which could be an access barrier for a broad range of people, not just people with disabilities. One access issue that we already discussed before is affordability, right? And of course, lack of audio. Some of these activities and experiences are very visual. There is no audio whatsoever. There is no text, which again can work perfectly fine for many people, but not for everyone. Some possible barriers that can be overcome. I'm going to talk about each of those with respect again to the broad group. So focusing on hearing, on auditory disabilities, it helps, if possible, to select or use an activity that has closed captions. So anything that has audio, anything that has conversations, in the same ways you see that in videos, in a 2D video, to provide closed captions also in the immersive environment. It's not the same as subtitle. Subtitle really provides the text-based version of what's said, but the caption goes to the next step to even provide information about the ambience. Maybe there is a noise, maybe it will also say if there is music. So they provide additional cues to people who can't hear on top of the dialogue of the conversation. Open captions can be used as well. The difference between closed and open captions is that open captions are hardly embedded in the video or in the immersive environment. You can't turn them off, which of course, some people maybe don't want the captions in front of them. They want to be able to turn them off. And also closed captions can be downloaded as a text transcript, which is also useful for people who want to read it, maybe even blind people. So it has a very wide range of uses. So open captions, not a great idea. They're really hard embedded in the visuals. It helps, like I said, ambience and noise description, maybe text-based, providing maybe text-based cues or labels. There's been a recent research published in 2020, and I provide the link at the end for extra resources, and I'd be happy to share the PowerPoint later. But there's been some recent research into the development of a prototype called ERVR. It's a prototype of a ear haptic. It integrates with any, it can integrate with any VR headset. And so this ERVR will be able to detect the direction of sound and translate that as a vibromotors devices that are placed on the user's ear. So they will be able to actually feel them, feel the vibration, maybe you feel the direction of the vibration. And so some people with hearing impairments were able to interact with some games using those devices, because they could tell through the touch, actually, to the vibration, where the direction of the sound and where the input was from, and they could respond accordingly. So it's just a prototype, but I thought it was really, I haven't tried it myself, but it seems pretty exciting. I'm sure there will be maybe more developments in that area. Speaking of visual, again, like I said before, not just about people are blind, people have low vision, but up to 8% of the population globally is colorblind. I've seen in some games in the past that where I remember attending a conference where they were showing, I can't remember the game exactly, but this game was showing in green. So there was a war. I think it was a war setting where the friends, the people were on your side were labeled in green, and the enemies were labeled in red. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting example. And red, green colorblind is probably the most common form of color blindness. So being able to use not just color, which is fine too, but maybe add that to maybe text or written labels, friend or foe, or other indicators besides color alone. Audio cues, of course, text, but also audio, having maybe both, giving the ability to the end user to decide, to customize if they want audio, if they want text. Having audio cues, again, keyboard-only commands can help. I've seen, again, there was another research published last year that was also mentioned on the Microsoft blog about a white cane controller that's integrated to a VR experience. So the white cane is integrated with, communicates with a virtual environment by signaling to the user using touch, but also audio cues about when are you reaching the virtual corner of the building. So that was also pretty neat. I've watched a couple of videos of those, and if you have the chance, like I said, I'll show you some of the list of resources at the end of the presentation. I thought it was really interesting. So you can, the VR experience can be integrated with a range of assistive technology, including white canes, and they use touch and audio inputs. Also, the ability for low vision users, the ability to interact with an activity that enables the users to zoom in as much as they can, or zoom out, or focus on one element at a time. That also helps people with ADHD or cognitive issues. And also environment descriptions. they benefit both people with hearing disabilities and people with visual disabilities, both audio and text-based descriptions. As far as mobility goes, I mentioned that before, ability to control speed settings, and that helps not just people, again, they're all these groups are kind of intertwined. If you take care of one barrier, one issue, it will affect even more people, because, for example, speed settings, yes, of course, they could be a barrier for people with mobility disabilities, but flashy, fast animations can also cause dizziness. People maybe that have maybe cognitive issues could also be negatively affected by them. So being able to control the speed settings of the experience on the user end, it will be really beneficial to a range of people. Again, keyboard only options if possible, and also for people who have not limited fine motor control, ability to interact using simple movements, even big buttons. They've shown some research on controllers used by kids in K-12 environments where they use really big buttons to do the same activities that other people were doing, but just with devices that enable them to interact effectively. Even things even as simple, imagine you're in a classroom and you're using maybe Google Cardboard, and you want your students to use it in the experience, and you may be wondering, so I have one of my students that has a mobility impairment. How do I, is it expand? Where do I go to find out what to do? Sometimes, depending, of course, on the type of disability, some workarounds are really cheap and easy. For example, with Google Cardboard, they sell online some head straps or rubber bands, and they can really go a long way, because the person, maybe with the additional maybe help of somebody, they can put these on and they don't have to use their hands if they can't physically use their hands to live the experience. So some workarounds, maybe not all of them, but some of them can be really affordable and common to find. And think beyond users with mobility disabilities, because motion sickness is a common experience among VR users. So all these I think all these measurements could help a wide range of users. Again, I mentioned that before, cognitive disabilities. Another thing that I didn't say before is in an environment, maybe particularly people who experience maybe anxiety, have anxiety issues, provide the opportunity to practice the activity for the first time, maybe multiple times in a very safe environment. Nobody's judging them. They can have time to focus and get used to the activity. So present low stakes activities. Speed control, again, that helps a lot. Keeping flashing and blinking to a minimum. I think by following the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.1, according to their standards, they recommend not to present activities that blink more than three times consecutively per second, or not more than, I think, 5 blinks per 3 seconds. They have the rule of no more than 3 times. The blinking should happen no more than 3 times. So just keep them to a minimum, maybe a couple of blinks, but not too many blinking, because they can cause, in some users, they could cause headaches or they could cause seizures. So you might want to keep them that to a minimum. I would say, though, that you may have noticed here that one thing they all seem to have in common, regardless of the user, regardless of the experiences they're having, is being able to enable the user, the end user, to customize the content. If they want to change the font color, if they want to zoom in, zoom out, if they want to only audio cues, if they want to select text-based only cues. So being able to empower the end user to customize experience as much as possible, I think is really key. It will make it really easy. And sometimes, we're just consumers of VR, so we don't know what's expected, and sometimes we don't really have a choice there. And I will also say allowance of third-party software or hardware. So being able to select an activity, maybe test it to see if it interacts well with the screen reader software, with a white cane, with other controllers for people with mobility impairments, with a headband or mouse stick, or voice recognition software, or ear haptics. I think that's another possible challenge. Some of these prototypes or software integrate well with most VR experiences, but it's always good maybe to test it out before maybe mass deploying it or deploying it with somebody whom you know might have a disability. And I think that's it. This is a list of further readings. I know the font is a little bit small, but I'll be happy, through Dr. Hayes, I'll be happy to share the PowerPoint with you, list of readings, also conference of interest, #GA conference. This is a conference for gamers with disabilities, if you're interested in learning more. And feel free to contact my team. We have 2 emails. One is clear.compliance@unt.edu. This is the email for the compliance team. So if you have any specific questions about accessibility compliance, I would recommend you use that email. If you want to reach out to us, you're interested in doing research into VR, we have a dedicated email, dsi.research@unt.edu. I think that's the end of it. I hope I'd stay within 6 minutes. Just looking for.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Such an important topic that I was so happy that you said you were going to speak on.